Grace Through Rosy Glow, and I have a very important and urgent Ascension message for this coming equinox 2021, which is this Saturday. I am living in the UK, so it will be a different time, different people, different times, but it's really important for us to keep in mind that this is when a portal opens. The last portal like this was the last solstice, winter solstice. Before that we had autumn, and if you've been following what's been going on the last year, you will know that big things tend to occur at this time. We open up, happens that we don't want, because although the doorway opens and is open to all sorts of wonderfulness, it's also a space that is open for nefarious intent. And the point of me making this message is to preempt it so that we can each strengthen our own energy fields, our divine architecture, and also bolster the banks of the river so the river can flow. So there is a very big event going on this Saturday all around the world that is not just the equinox, and you may or may not have heard about it, but what I'm going to ask you to do is to remember that either you are standing and being counted or you are lending your energy to it. And it is super important for us to understand that at a time when the light and the dark is in perfect balance, we get to see this and we get to choose which way it's going to go. This is why typically you may well be finding at this time that all sorts of sabotage tends to go on. You're sending an intention forward and it seems like everything's shitting on you. Okay, so what I've noticed is I'm more prone to psychic attack, I'm more prone to accidents, I'm more prone to negative thoughts, I'm more prone to doubts and to fears affecting me. And this is what I mean about those with nefarious intent. So if your energy field is strong, if your intention is strong and you have cleared resistance, but if you are moving through in your life and you are intending things and they're not working out the way they want, it's not just that there will be some kind of subconscious interference, it is also that there are energies that piggyback on that subconscious resistance and they energize it. Okay, so what I want you to think about is it has been seeded for a very long time. And the last time that I kind of want to bring you up to awareness of is, do you remember back in, the September 11th thing that we all know about many years ago was the start of a war on terror, right? And yet what has happened as a result of that is our rights have been interfered with and have been taken away to protect us. And we are facing something very similar at the moment. In the UK, we have Priti Patel's crime court and sentencing bill that's coming through, and there is an attempt to basically make people taking to the streets and sharing the fact that they are not complying, they are not happy with moves that are being put in place, to be made illegal, to be made so difficult to do that ultimately one faces fines, heavy fines and imprisonment. And this is a violation of our current human rights. But guess what? Our human rights are being rewritten unless we do what I've been saying for a little bit of time, which is we start to write the story of StarPeace and we start to rewrite the narrative. So as I'm speaking, I'm going to ask you, one, to be open to what I'm saying. I intend to not offend anyone, though I possibly will push some buttons, because the way we've been programmed is to be offended by things before actually understanding the way that we are motivated, the way that we are manipulated through the things that we actually care about. And if we can see it, then we can call it out and we can move beyond it. So that is the intention of this video, okay? So we know that we're at a time that is preceding Easter. And we know that these equinoxes and solstices and all the major celebrations that, you know, are religious celebrations around the year have been based on ancient traditions, pre-religion as we know it. And what happens is the message has been distorted, it has been used to create a new narrative, one that somehow makes something of the old narrative, and then also gets us to basically buy a new story according to the will of those that want us to see things a certain way. And this has been going on for so long now that we don't actually appreciate how manipulated and how much at what we believe our beliefs are have actually been seeded in us until we choose to deprogram and until we choose to see how everything is connected. So this is my intention here, is just to put some things forward for us. So interesting how I keep needing to reconnect. So I'm going to speak slowly. Now, again, I'll be careful of the things that I'm saying here because I want you to read between the lines. But essentially, this is someone who is incredibly vocal about not buying into the narrative around the world. There was a video going around of him actually having got durians and watermelons and all sorts of fruits and wine, etc., tested with the PCR test, only to find that these named beings, who actually were just fruits and different substances, were coming back with positive results. And one of the attempts here was to prove that actually this test is unreliable. He was also an advocate of not wearing the things on our faces and not buying into the in terms of the way that we should be addressing the heart attack. Others are saying that it was is getting and we need to protect ourselves from. And yet, isn't it interesting that he just suddenly disappears and he's not around anymore? And this was one of the biggest speaker-uppers of what's going on today, being something that doesn't make a lot of sense and maybe has an ulterior agenda, an ulterior motive that is not the protection that we think that we're actually getting. Now, why would I even say this? Well, because guess who's taking over? A woman. Now, I want you to really think about this. The people that are being put in place that are actually doing a lot of the controlling, that maybe are from ethnic minorities. Maybe they're black. Maybe they're women. Maybe they're a different sexual orientation. Maybe even they're transgender. And I don't want you, please, to think for 1 minute that I'm not an inclusive being, because we're all one. That's what we are. But we have to be very careful about how causes are being used to control and manipulate us into compliance. And this is what is going on. We have to be very careful, friends, about what the surface looks like. And we have to practice discernment to see what the message is underneath. Because what is happening now is someone who is very much opposed to an agenda is being replaced by someone who is going to be complying with that agenda. Now, if that's going on all around the world, the future for us, unless we choose otherwise, is one where we are controlled, one where we are only allowed to have one narrative, one where dissidence isn't permitted, isn't accepted. And this has been going on for so long that the rug's been pulled under our feet, the bricks have been built around us, actually, not pulled down, to the point that we haven't even realised something is being erected around us because we've been constantly distracted. Look over here, this comes up. Look over there, this comes up. And this is what happens. And if you practice discernment and mercy, which I'm going to bring in a moment, you will see this. So, unless we choose what we want to happen next, we will have it chosen for us. And we may well not like what is chosen for us. Transparency, in my world, doesn't mean being monitored all the time. Transparency does not mean being surveyed all the time. Now, someone else might argue, well, if I ain't doing anything wrong, there's no wrong in being surveyed. This is for the highest good of everyone. At least we're all safe. Hold on a minute. We were safe in the first place. Who decided we weren't? Who told us we weren't? Stories have been told for a long time that we have believed. And what happens is we go into the narrative and we decide we need the very measures that are being proposed because of these Trojan horses. So what's a Trojan horse? You know the saying, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So Trojan horse is a gift, a blessing, put forward to us as something that is to our benefit, only destruction. And anything at the moment, it is important for us to look at discernment. Now, I do want to talk about Christ's teachings a little bit, because as someone who doesn't really call myself a Christian, but really has a deep love affair with Christ consciousness, some of the elements of which being compassion, elements of compassion being discernment, transparency, accountability, forgiveness, mercy, allowing, acceptance, boundaries, and discernment. There are many qualities that I associate with Christ consciousness which I would call compassion. And what I'll say is the man, as he appeared, if you do look beyond the narratives that have been shared in our books, our good books, was a rebel. He came in and he was certainly not pro-establishment. He was anti-establishment. He came to rewrite the rules and to explain that an eye for an eye isn't the way forward. And that actually we need to turn the other cheek. We need to show compassion. But language is very interesting and it's easily manipulated. So I would like you just to take a couple of terms here to understand that what we perceive as Christ in the world today, in religion, particularly very heavily organised and dogmatic religion, you may call that Catholicism, you may call that Methodist Church, you may call that any number of sects of the same thing. And isn't it interesting that they argue amongst themselves about the way that one should worship and the right way to love God and the right way to be a good Christian or a good whatever your religion is. We've got to be very, very careful here, folks, because messages are taken, they're distorted, and then the new truth is created. Easter's a wonderful example of that. Easter is based on a fertility goddess. Easter is based on the equinox coming along, and then it's the start of light, and it is the start of the fertility season. What if this video stays up is, this good man who was basically a martyr. Now think about what martyrdom means, okay? He suffered for our sins. He came to wipe our sins away because we're such bad people, so we could get a chance to be with the divine. He then gets crucified by God, and then his message gets distorted. And then what happens? What we do is we do Lent, we do 30 days of austerity or 40 days of austerity, and then we get to eat Easter eggs and we get to have loads of chocolate. And the bunny rabbits are basically about the fertility symbol. The eggs are originally about fertility, right? But now it's become about consumerism, it's become about sugar, it's become about numbing out and not thinking about what the original message is. Same as Christmas, which was based on the equinox, right? So again, these traditions have been taken, they've been distorted, just a bit like everything else. So do we believe what is said in the news? Well, I would ask you to practice discernment again, because the story tends to be that people who speak out and don't say what everyone else wants them to say tend to disappear. They tend to be disappearing, right? Gotten rid of. Or maybe they're all dying of this one thing that everyone's dying from, except they're not. I want you all just to please take into your heart the fact that it's time now to look beyond the obvious, because what is put in front of us is a distraction, and we need to be aware of that. So often this happens. Big news. Okay, what's going on in the back behind the scenes? Because the people that I'm seeing that are speaking up, doing some of the most heinous things at the moment, are the people that are being put forward from ethnic minorities, the women, those who are stepping forward. Okay, the Black Lives Matter movement. This has been heavily taken over. Even what's it called? Extinction Rebellion. Just about anything that has an amazing initial intention is taken, infiltrated and distorted. It has happened through all of time, folks. Okay, so this is not about me being pro or anti anything. It's about waking up to the programming. Once we see it, and we are all seeing it, the game is over. So what can we do? What am I inviting you to do? I'm inviting you now to use the power of your imagination. I'm also inviting you to consider two things. One, there is a saying, the meek shall inherit the earth. Now, as I interpret that, the meek to me seems like the opposite of power-hungry brute force, is what I'll say. Now, the shadow side of meek would be quiet, yeah, unassuming, don't really put themselves forward. So one way that this word can, or this statement can be interpreted, is those who just do as they're told. They'll be the ones that will get to enjoy this lovely planet. Those who just play by the rules, that do as they're told and don't question, they're the ones that will get to be here in the end. However you interpret it is up to you. Then there's the nullified, okay? There's another way of understanding the word meek, the nullified. So the nullified would be those who've been discredited. Now, if those who've been discredited shall inherit the earth, that's much better for us, isn't it? Because that's saying that ultimately those who have stood up, those who have spoken truth, those who have been judged, persecuted, condemned for that truth. And you have to understand that there is an establishment saying one thing at the moment, and there are lots of other dissidents saying something else, and they're all being silenced, discredited, quietened, or they're disappearing at the moment. Very important to see what's going on. And when I say at the moment, it's been going on for a very long time. So the invalidated get their power back. The gentle, the kind, the humble. Now, the gentle, the kind, the humble are those who don't intend to cause harm. They're the peaceful things. And that's why this Saturday is so important, because those of us who are seeking peace are standing up for peace. But we make the mistake of anger is not something we should feel. And what I would like you to understand is when boundary has been violated, it is absolutely acceptable to feel angry, absolutely acceptable to respond in anger. What do Kung Fu masters do? What do the martial arts do? Okay, they're able to respond and defend, and if necessary, take life to preserve life. Doesn't mean we go out looking for trouble, but we're in a position where we will fight for what we believe in if we are under attack. Do you understand the difference between looking for a problem and actually responding to a problem? So boundaries are important. They're going to come in a minute. Now, a dear friend of mine who is a Christian, albeit a rogue one, explained to me that the original statement, the meek shall inherit the earth, is probably closer to the merciful shall inherit the earth, which really made me think a lot about the word mercy and forgiveness, and I'll make a different video on that. But merciful is kind, forgiving, not cruel or harsh. Those who give relief from suffering. And what I'm saying here is that we are going to need to be merciful, because what is happening is those of us awaken to the harsh truth of what's been going on for a very long time, not just 1,000 years, probably more like 1,000,000, when we not just the effect of cellular memory trauma that passes through our bloodlines from one generation to the next, but as we're clearing that, we are remembering our soul imprints, the trauma that our souls have experienced from one lifetime to the next. And many of us are here right now, having been here at the fall of Atlantis. Maybe were of Lemurian descent, and we were powerful beings that have come here to actually witness and participate in the change of the narrative. Not the same old story being played again and again. But in order to make that possible, we have to rewrite it. I am imploring you, this is the urgent message, that we have to write the new narrative. So I'm going to use the example of peaceful protest. Okay? And I'm going to say to you that ultimately, what I would like you all to vision is that everyone has a place. Now, when we actually look at the police force, they are meant to be guardians of the peace. They are not meant to practice brutal behaviour in their attempt to get us to comply with bills, laws, statute, whatever it is that's going on. But I'm seeing a lot of people fighting at the moment for their right, for their freedom, without being clear what the end result is. So I'll use Maya as an example. What is it we want here? We've got, basically our human rights being rewritten, being taken from under our noses on the basis that there's some terrible thing out there that is so scary that we have to have our rights being taken away from us for us to be protected. As I said to you, this happened not so long ago. It had a different skin on it, but it was about the same thing: take power away from the people. At the moment, the freedom to roam is under attack. 2 basic rights: to travel, and I can't remember what the second one is, but someone else will remind me, I'm sure, in the video. But we have basic rights, okay? And those are ones that we have to uphold. And we need to remember that if we are doing no harm, then we should not be seen as guilty before proven innocent. And yet the way we're being told to walk around this earth right now is to imagine we've got something we don't have. And if you know the power of the imagination, you'll know that if you believe something enough, it starts to become true, because there's a part of the brain that cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So let's turn that on its head, my friends. Let's make that work for us. What we do is we now have a vision that instead of being fearful of those that are actually meant to uphold our freedom and our peace, we see them creating the banks of the river. We see them holding the boundary for the energy, the river, to flow. And the river is the will of the people, not the will of the very small percent that is intending to control and dominate through fear, and has done for a very, very long time. So many of us are waking up to this now. We are angry. So I want you to imagine that the police force is the Shiva, the people are the Shakti. And so it's like putting your money where your mouth is. So this is about you standing up and being counted. I would like you to imagine that instead of there being the usual same old shit, just people go, they have a peaceful time, then there are people in the crowd who have been paid to disrupt trouble, to cause trouble, to then make those in the yellow high-vis jackets step in and start to act. None of this happens. We know this is what happens. We don't allow it to happen. So instead of seeing the scenes that then get reported on the news as protesters attacking police, we actually start seeing things for the truth. So what we see is those beings that have actually, without realizing it, started to play a part in a very dangerous game, wake up to that. And instead of them coming in and causing trouble, I'm talking about the high-vis here, they stand along, they create the banks of the river. So you see high-vis along the banks of the river, along the streets that people are walking. You see them being humble. You see them holding their heart, recognizing the importance of their role, which is to uphold the peace, not to enforce the laws of those that want to control and dominate. When you actually look at the difference here of what common law is and what statute law is, you will know that common law is actually the law of the land, and yet statute law has come about to basically erode our freedom and to make those who want to control and dominate through terror, which we know of a very famous German one who did that a long time ago. They're doing it all over the place, all over the world now. If you don't comply, then that's the story. That's what happens. You get your life made difficult for you. Okay? So, if we're scared, if we're all scared, we'll do as we're told. But if we learn to overcome our fear and to question why we're frightened, and if actually the story we're being told is correct, then things can change and we can take our power back. So the story now is, I want you to imagine peaceful marching. I want you to imagine peaceful protest. I want you to imagine the fact that those who usually make it turn nasty, those who make it bad, are the ones who actually step and uphold now the highest vision. I'd like you to imagine millions of people standing up and saying, I do not comply, not in my name will my freedom be taken away, to protect others, because this is what's happening now. Social conscience is being distorted, and I've tried to use some examples of words to help you to understand the way things are twisted around. So, you know, if you look at the pattern of what's happened in the last year, 3 weeks to flatten the curve in the UK, and I will say there's a lot of misinformation going on everywhere. So you hear someone that's speaking truth and then suddenly their story changes. You want to be very careful of that. What's that really about? Okay, pay attention, because there's something that is called controlled opposition. Also, it's very difficult to be able to trust anything you see on camera these days, because how do you know that's really the person? How do you know the background is really the background? Because CGI is incredibly clever these days. So you're right to not believe it unless you've seen it yourself, but take it from others who have seen with their own eyes, they were there, the difference between what really happened and then what others report it to have happened. And take what you hear in the mainstream and even in the alternate channels with a pinch of salt, because there are infiltrators everywhere. Every good thing has been infiltrated. Or the tears get taken over by the big guys, right? Anything originally beautiful at some point gets taken over, and I'm using the Extinction Rebellion as an example. You know, you have a wonderful, wonderful cause, say with Black Lives Matter, and intention, and then it gets seeded and used to control and to push the agendas that were the agendas trying to be pushed in the first place. If you can see this for what it is, it will really, really help for us, to each of us, to break the spell. So we need to move out of the state of denial. Denial is then followed by anger, right? Denial, disbelief. Firstly, we don't believe things are as others say they are, until we get so much evidence building up that we can't ignore it anymore. Then we get really angry, and that's when we have to be careful, because that anger can cause a lot of problems. And that's what they're scared of as well, right? Our uprising. So keep us dumb, keep us stupid, feed us sugar, feed us crap food, feed us the processed vegan food, because we should all go plant-based now. Oh, and, you know, genetic modification, that's a good thing. That's going to save us in the future. Well, we ain't been here all this time, my friends, because of the latest technology, which isn't the latest technology. It's actually archaic compared to the technology that is available to us if we connect to our star families, if we connect to the support that is available to us. But we are going to have to reach beyond what we know. So the message is, to summarise, the portal is opening now. The opportunity for nefarious intent to bandwagon, to jump in and to attack wherever there is weakness is there. We know this. So what do? We boost our energy out from our hearts, and we are free. And as we radiate that and we hold peace in our hearts and we envisage peace all around the world, and we trust it is possible. We accept and we see that where people are speaking out, they are being silenced, and it's happening in lots of different ways. But if we all step up and say, I do not comply, I do not consent, the walls are paper thin and they come all the way down. So the most scared people are going to push their agendas on you and tell you should do what they're telling you. They will tell you that you're selfish not to. And what I'm saying to you is to go into your heart, to examine your motives, why you do what you do, what is it that you've looked into, how much research have you done, and to question whether they've done the same or not. Because any time I've questioned the establishment, I've had to question my own motives, and I've had to have conversations with them where I've asked a lot of questions. And when I've seen they don't have the answers that I have come to as a result of the research, that has given me the confidence to trust what I know over what they say. Because just because they're an external authority, that does not mean that they're right. And we all move through the lesson of religion, which is giving our power away to an external authority. And we learn to hold our own counsel, our own truth. I am sovereign. Okay, so I'd like you just to take all of that, just seeing whether there's anything else I needed to say. So discernment means being very aware of the fact that things are not as they are reported to be. Mercy is about us being able to accept that it might be difficult to forgive the heinous crimes that have been committed in our name. But we can show mercy and accept that those that are in the middle, who are basically propelling the propaganda, propelling what is being put forward, very often think they're doing good. They haven't realised that they're not, because they're heavily programmed, and effectively we've all been brainwashed. That's what programming is. It's brainwashing. If you don't know my background, I studied education at university, so looking at the difference between pedagogy and indoctrination is something you can all research in your own time. The story changes over time, but we were all taught at school history and how dictators rise to power. And I'd like you just to take away what looks like a different scene and see what's happening underneath, and see that this is happening, a technocracy where we have no freedom. It seems I've said a lot of words, so we'll see if this stays live for long, or it stays public for long. Be very careful of what you think is a victory for a minority, because very often these people will be utilised for nefarious intent, and if we know that, we can act with it, we're aware of it. And yeah, in London in particular, there's one, Preeti Patel, Adele Khan, listen to what they're saying, what they're doing, okay? And consider the fact that, once I'm really happy that these people had come in and had powerful positions because of. You've got to get beyond political correctness, people. That's what I'm saying. I'm being blunt. Look beyond the obvious. Look beyond the obvious celebration and see what's underneath it. There's loads of people. Okay, I've said it. So I'm going to leave that there. The message is visualize what you want. And in our country, as I said, there's a lot of fighting for our freedom at the moment. But I asked my husband yesterday, I was like, what's the outcome we want? Do we want common law now to be reinstated as the law we all live by, and therefore making statute law null and void? Because we need to have an intention, we need to have a holy grail that we're working towards. If we're just fighting the next battle and we're fighting the next battle, we don't really know where we're going. We've got to have the vision. So the vision for this humanity is a paradise planet. It's a planet where we live peacefully with each other. We don't need to have wars anymore. Organised warfare is something that was created a long time ago as a concept. It was seeded from an extraterrestrial origin. You want to believe that? You don't want to believe that, you go with it. But it is so important we wake up to our origins now. We wake up to the fact that just because something is the way it seems to have always been, it's not the way it always has to be. And if we make that choice in our hearts, we might not know how to get there. Don't worry about that. Just know what you want. I want to live peacefully on this earth. I want a fair system where every child, every parent, every grandparent, every great-grandparent, every animal and plant life and oceans and nature are respected, totally respected and revered. That we don't make out that somehow as humans our intelligence is more important than what was already here before us. We need to be very aware of the megalomaniacs, the philanthropists, the experts. We need to be very, very aware of what their intentions are. And if it seems like there may be a conflict of interest, there probably is. But no one's going to step forward unless... For those of you who want to join me on Sunday, I am going to be hosting an Equinox Cacao ceremony and yoga workshop online. UK time 2:30 to 6:30, so if you want to join me for that, I'll put the link in under this video. Tomorrow I ask you please to stand up and be counted. Whatever is true for you, to stand up, to be in your truth, to be a peaceful warrior, to be a beacon of love light, to bring the light through into the earth. And if you're not going to be participating in the global event with your physical body, light a candle. Make sure you stay in a vibration and meditation. Seed peace, intend peace, I am peace. Send love and light to all those who are standing up and they are speaking up for freedom, not just mine, not just theirs, but yours. And remember that just because you don't understand it, just because you don't want to believe it, it doesn't mean it's not true. Okay? This is how we can overcome the illusion and move into truth and co-create the reality that we want. I love you loads. Join me next week for the co-creation meditation, full moon meditation. It's going to be the last one I do on this channel that will be live. So if you can join me, that'll be 12:30 GMT. I love you all very much. Happy Friday. Now I just need to find a way to end it.